Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to get me in the picture. You know, these starts are always just horrific. But thank you very much for coming in today. I had a great time this week, and that's what I did. I think I can show this again. How can I do that? What move? Oh, I need to do this. This is what we're going to talk about. I worked on this movement, this little contraption that's in the lowest level of my D&D diorama. And I got it to a point where I'm going to be able to utilize the wireless LEDs. And that's really, really cool. So we'll look at those light up today. I haven't tested this. I'm sure hoping it's going to work, but I'm really excited. So thank you very much for coming in. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's just get that out of there, and we'll look at it some more later on. I've also got it on the top down, so we can look at it and I can show you. And I just want to say thanks very much for coming in. This is all about my D&D diorama, and I am going to go to show some slides real quick. This is my diorama that I have been working on today. Again, it's going to be finishing the temple contraption and painting and weathering. It's just the beginning of the painting and weathering, but it was so fun working on this because you see the little tide lines down there on the right-hand side. There's a whole wonderful story that happened a week ago because that was all inspired by viewer comments, and it was awesome. Scott and there was another person, and I've got her name. I think it was Mary. She had also commented, but I didn't get it until Scott said it. So this is the diorama. This is unstacked. It's all based on Raymond Feist's World of Midkemia. It's just this was just such a wonderful book, and I'm now in a group where on Facebook about Raymond Feist books and stuff like that. And it's really fun because it's people just discovering it, people like me that have been reading it since the 80s, and everybody in between. And so it's fun to see the comments, not about my diorama, just see the comments of that world that I lived in. And that's the whole point of this diorama. I'm able to take this super fun world that I've been living in since the mid 80s and create my own world that I imagine from the story, not somebody else's interpretation. So that's been really fun. So here I'm just kind of going through our evolution of this lower level. It just started out with some foam. I carved this stuff. Oh, and John is here. Hello, John. Thanks very much. I got to get over here on this screen. Hello, John. Thanks for coming in. And also Paul is here. Paul, thank you very much for coming in. I really, really appreciate that. And Paul is here. Like I typically post the meeting at 10:30, 11, between there, sometime about 11 o'clock, it's always up. And Paul's always the first person in. So it's really, really fun. So thank you very much. Martin is here. Hello, Martin. It's been a long time. It's so wonderful. And the Kettenrad Kettencrad, I got to talk about that because that is just another little thing I'm working on. It's back here. I don't want to distract from what I was saying, but I'm the type of person that does that constantly. So you got to be real quick to keep up. But yeah, I am working on a Kettencrad, and it's a Tamiya 148th. And I've got her put together, and I've got a base coat, and it's sat for like 3-4 days. So it's nice and hard. And so now I'm going to start weathering it and stuff like that. So really cool. And I saw your weathering, very subtle, very nice, Martin. I like that a lot. I tend to go overboard in my weathering on everything, as we're going to see today. But I kind of like that. Yours is very conservative, but so realistic. That's the thing. It looks like it's operational. So whereas I go and it's like it's maybe been left for a while, sitting and stuff. But anyway, thank you very much, Martin, for coming in. And Daniel's here, Homefront Forge. Thank you very much for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. And your comments this week were great too. So, and I'm so excited about this because this week I've had these wonderful comments and stuff that literally changed the direction of what I'm doing here. And if we go to the top down real quick, this had a completely different idea when I started it. This is the lowest level of my D&D diorama, and this is changing from what was going to be a dank but dry underground almost tomb thing to now it's going to have this kind of a fishy smell and water and tides and it's more of a grotto. So I'm really excited. Wow, Eric is here. Hello, Eric. Thank you so much for coming in. It has been a while. I hope you are well. Eric and I share one malady, which is our lower back. It's like, oh my gosh. So I know how that can be. And I hope you're doing much better, sir. We need to connect. Great for having you in, and thanks very much for stopping in today. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about this lower level. Let me get back to that real quick. And this is meant to be something with some movement. You know, this is the boss level of my D&D diorama, where you go through the upper levels of it, and then you finally come down here, and you've been collecting these little artifacts along the way. And of course, those artifacts have a wireless LED in them. And then when you get down here, you place it in that little receptacle and you bring this over, and there's an electrical coil in there. And we're going to look at that. We're going to talk how I mounted it, and we're going to see it light up. I have not lit this up yet since I built it. And then when you raise this, it lights up the item. So you've been carrying this little item since you found it during the game. And as you get to this lower level, you finally get to see, you know, what your item is. So I'm gonna have a couple of not too many items, but the items will be different, and you won't know what color each item is. So I've got 2 items so far, and they're small, they're compact, they can be hidden, in different places in the diorama. This is the diorama back here, by the way. And I'm thinking about some kind of conclusion where, you have to kind of figure out if this is the artifact that I want to complete my part of it because of the color that it lights up and also the object. So anyway, when this gets here, you lift it up, and because it gets in the center of that coil, it'll light up, and I think that'll be kind of a fun conclusion to the game. There's also going to be some lighting back in here. That is like a mystical pit. That's what this mechanism does. It is attempting to basically harness that little mystical energy from that pit and bring it forward so that it can light that up. And part of this is going to be a lot of story building. I'm not a DM. I've only played Dungeons and Dragons 2 times, literally 2 times. And it was very fun. I enjoyed it very much. But I've played other games, tabletop games and stuff like that, growing up in high school and stuff like that, most notably Global. It was, this is, in the 80s, 82. And it was great because everything was predefined, right? It was a good game. You sit down and play, right? But you can play for hours. And it was about World War II and stuff like that, and a global map. And you do all these things and making these deals and all this kind of stuff. Well, in D&D, because it's led by someone and the story can change virtually every time, that's why I think the diorama will be really fun, because I'm putting elements in the diorama that, number one, aren't revealed until you get to that level or you advance to that area. Number two, it's kind of an open deal. So if you want to write a different story in the diorama and have a little bit of a different way of going about it, still we will most likely have the conclusion here, but I could see where you could start it here. Why not? I want it to be able to be played multiple times. I want it to be able to be played under different campaigns, different DMs, whatever. The strongest idea so far is to host an online D&D game when it's done. you know. But again, it really has to have a story. So building the story, building the whole thing, I'm kind of doing that as I go along, but I'm getting great ideas also from other people. So anyway, Bobbity Badoo. I want to get back here. Benny is here. Hello, Benny. Thanks very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Daniel says, okay, for D&D play, maybe the platform you place the item on has spots, how you arrange the tokens, the pattern could do a final reveal of an outcome. Maybe we can have card up patterns out. Oh, yeah. See, there you go. I like that. And you should be able to put multiple items in there. So maybe even a combination of color. I love that. That's very, very cool. Sorry, I couldn't find the email address. No worries. Was that to send me something? Buppity, you can, I don't know what the email part is. But anyway, we'll get back to that. If you can clear that up for me, Daniel. I don't think there was something here. Anyway, so thank you. For the above. Okay, I gotcha. Thank you. So next, what I want to do is take you through kind of the evolution of it, because the evolution of it was really, really fun. And I've got some videos to show you, and how this thing came up, how it came up to the point that it is now, because it was all meant to be this dry kind of cave, you know, no water, no nothing, maybe dank, but mostly dry and dusty. That was what I was thinking, was dusty. And that's, you know, part of the story. Sorry, I'm trying to get that there. All right. So we're going to swap over to this, not that. And it started like this, just regular pink foam. I carved it with my rotary tool, the Fordham, and then I went in and defined it more. Then I painted it. This is, again, right at the end of last week. It was painted like this. And then, you know, we brought in this was the mechanism in its first iteration before any kind of weathering on it whatsoever. Then I fit it to this lower area, and that took some work. Then another paint job, getting everything kind of monochromatic. Here's the next iteration where I started bringing in color, because I didn't just want this all black color. And that's where it is today. So how did it come here? And this is really fun because these came from viewer comments. So I want to play a video for you now. And whoops, sorry. I want to play a video for you now. And this video was what inspired this to go from dry to a wet environment.
This is my D&D temple cave, and I don't know if you remember yesterday, but yesterday I had put, well, it was the day before, but I had put like all this sanded grout, and it simulates dirt and, you know, buildup of grunge and stuff, and it looked fantastic, except everything was one color. Everything was like this tannish color. So last night I went back in and redefined everything, repainted everything. And then I also added like this debris. This is like little wood chunks and gravel and little rocks. Here's like a piece of the mechanism that busted up. So I'm thinking it looks really, you know, much better today. I've got a lot more paint to do on.
Okay, so I wanted to go that far. And the reason is, from that video, from that perspective, what I was going to do here, and let's look at it, was I was just going to have this dusty kind of dry interior. But then I got these comments. Now, the first one, and it didn't trigger it, but Mary Nickel 830 said, looks like it has occasional flooding issues, which works great for a lower level. You added the debris and the crevices of the path of water would take. So that was great. I mean, thank you, Mary. That was awesome, because that showed a different perspective. But it didn't, you know, the light didn't go off. Okay. But then the following day I got this one, and this one really did it. So John, I'm sorry. Scott McLeod, who listens every day, and we text back every single day, says, looks really amazing, Bill, like it just got seawater rinse. The trash wheel adds a lot too. You're doing a great job. That was it. That was the one. In reading that comment, now I had the one from Mary Nickel. It was actually a full day before, so that was maybe churning in there. But when Scott said that, the whole trajectory of this took a turn for me. And I don't know if that's a big deal for you as a creator or somebody that builds something, or you're on a path, you've got this nebulous idea of what you're trying to do in your diorama, or what you're creating, your model, the paint scheme, all these things. But when you get something that just wham, I mean, it just literally hit like that, it's just this idea of changing the entire thing from dry to wet. And frankly, it fits better. This is behind base, or it's basically inside of a cliff on the ocean. The front above it is the ocean, and it shows the ocean bed. So it's actually below the ocean bed in a cross section. So it would have some water issues and stuff like that. So it worked out wonderfully. So what that led to then was for me to just go completely in a new direction. And I started adding these barnacles, and I figured out that I didn't want everything to flood. I didn't want this entire arena, if you will, this entire room to flood, but I did want to show, that the tide came in, or at regular intervals, this thing sees water and there's no water now. And so I started working just on the bottom end of the contraption. And that's just kind of what I'm calling it now. And I started adding these barnacles, and then I'm on that night with John Robeck on our Patreon. We have the group build on Friday nights. And so during our group build, I'm trying to figure out how to make not barnacles. I figured out how to make the barnacles. That's is just really fine ballast, railroad ballast. That's what I use for the barnacles, and I just glue them on. I mean, it's super fine. I don't know the gauge. I'm sorry. It's in my, my salsa containers, like everything is, but it's really super fine. It's white. Well, it's kind of a gray putty, maybe gray, but it's a lighter color, great contrast. And so that became barnacles. But the next thing I wanted was mussels. And I'm sitting there with a little bit of air dry clay, and I'm, rolling little snakes and cutting off little tiny things and rolling them a little bit and then flattening them out to try to make mussels, that might grow on a post on a pier or something like that. And as John and I are talking about, and I'm physically doing it, sesame seeds. And it was just one of those fun things. I got them here somewhere. I don't know where the heck they are. Oh, here they are. Sesame seeds. I just thought in scale, the look of them, and I think I've got a picture in here of closer. I hope so. There you can, over here on the left leg, on the upright of that left leg, those are mussels, and they're sesame seeds. And so the cool thing is, I go inside and I talk to Mrs. Modelcraft, and I mean, I'm the cook. I know what we got in there, but I was just like, holy cow, I got this great idea. I didn't know what we had available and stuff like that, because she does all of the she's like the supply sergeant, she makes sure everything's in there and stuff like that. So I didn't know what I could use, is basically what I'm trying to get to. But we had black sesame seeds. We have three kinds we have toasted, roasted, and black. And man, I'm telling you, just that little thing, and being able to make these little clusters of mussels and barnacles, there's parts of your project that you just fall in love with, and this is one of them. I just love this little part. It's just one of those, oops, it's just one of these things that when it hits, it it's like a rejuvenating point in the project. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm trying, you can tell, and I'm failing horribly. But yeah, it's just like this point where you just, holy cow. And that was really fun. So I wanted to share that. Now, many more things came of that, and I'm going to show you more pictures. It is much more detailed than that. And we're going to be talking about those details and how I decided to go about them and stuff like that. So possibly you could do it too. But sometimes inspiration from, people that even maybe somebody that you just met, that can just change your whole day and change your whole project. And it's a wonderful thing. It really is. And it, anyway, I'm not expressing myself well, but it's just joyous. It really is. And I love it. So Eric has something to say. He says, variety is the spice of life. Left field thoughts are behind many important inventions like WD-40, yeah, and the chainsaw. You love Google on that one. Just say it would be great to quit uncomfortable. I love it. Let's just say it would have been great, have been quite uncomfortable. Yeah. This is something that I think when you get those inspirations, it is so important to really live it out. Just enjoy it, and I did all week. Hey, Mark is here. Hello. I'm so glad you made it. I haven't seen you for a little bit, Mark. And okay, I've said this before and not done it. I'm trying to make it to IPMS tomorrow. I don't know if I can. And Eric, I'm trying to make it to AMPS the following weekend. I haven't been paying attention to that stuff. The summer has just been bananas. But I'm trying to get back to our meetings and our group, get-togethers and stuff like that. I'm really excited for it. So I hope to see both of you very soon. Benny says, reminds me of Indiana Jones with the Holy Grail. Absolutely. I am such a huge fan of Indiana Jones. The Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course. I saw that. That's the last movie I remember my whole family watching together. When you're growing up, it's just, it just gets that time, where you just don't go to movies with your parents and stuff. And that's the last movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that I remember sitting in the theater with my mom and my dad and my brother. And it was great. And it's not to say I didn't go to movies with my mom and my dad and my brother later on. It's just, everybody together watching the same movie. It's a very, very special movie to me and the entire franchise, because it's one of those touch points that has so much depth. My entire life since seeing that movie has brought on this whole idea of archaeology and history and the depth that stories can take if you look before now. There's always the story now, but looking at the story before, looking at what happened previously, thousands of or tens of thousands of years previously, that's a pretty interesting thing. And that's what Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark did for me. So I love bringing that into the things that I build. But the other thing that's wonderful about this, and thank you, Benny, I really appreciate that. The other thing that I love about this is it's also the fact that it's building on a story that's lived in my head for so long, and I'm able to realize that story. I'm not relying on someone else's interpretation of it. It's mine. And I'm bringing those elements into one of the things that I build. I've built dioramas, primarily military. I've done some sci-fi, and I love both genres. Is it genres? Anyway, love all those. But I'd never really done like fantasy, though I've thought about building a Tudor building for an awfully long time because I love construction. I love, the timbers and being a woodworker, you might imagine. I love how wood joins together, and part of that journey in being a woodworker as you learn about woodworking and how things came about, there's a lot of history in that too. And so you can go back and see, this kind of joint that we're using, like a dovetail. It was used, dovetails were used with the construction of the pyramids. Okay, so there you have it. So, 6 to 10,000 years ago, people are using the same kind of joinery that I use in my woodworking when I do it today. And in some degree, if you're doing it in that way, you can do it in alternate ways where you're doing it on your table saw, you can do it on your bandsaw, you can do it with a jig and a router and all that kind of stuff. But when you're hand cutting dovetails in a piece of wood, it's the exact same process that they did 6 to 10,000 years ago. I mean, that's just and I love that. I love something like that somebody that long ago in a completely different world basically did the same thing I was doing. There's something about that. So, this is one of my tangents, but the point is the excitement that I feel when I build these things and I bring all these things together and I'm able to build something now that is different that I'm used to building, but it still pulls on all these wonderful things that I've done, the woodworking, the Indiana Jones, the dioramas, the fantasy book that it's based on. And this project has that much history. We're talking about history. Just this project has that much history. It's so personal and it's so passionate when you're working on it to get inspiration outside from others who have shared the journey, because Scott's been there from like the beginning and prior. Okay, I'm done talking about special things. I've beat it to death with a stick in the mud. So, but that's that's just a really fun part about what I'm doing. So, where are we at? Yeah, I think we're good. So let's go back to some pictures and I'm going to show you what I did. So I put that stuff on there. The other element that I added to this was a little bit of felt. So Mrs. Modelcraft does felting. And it's one of the things that it's just real fun. She makes little figures and stuff. I can't remember if I've ever shown anything, but I mean, she's amazing. Knock your socks off amazing. She makes like little gnomes and elves and stuff like that. And so I'm using this. This is felt. So this is a great material because when I'm going in there, and let's go back to the picture real quick. When I'm going in there and I'm trying to add a little bit more depth to the barnacles, to the muscles, to the flotsam, I can go in there with color, right? Fine. Color it, and that's what I did first. But until I added this, and it doesn't take a lot, until I added this, there was no structure, there was no texture to it, and your eye picks that up very, very quickly as you're looking at it. So I'll show you some more pictures of that as we go on, but I just want to make mention of that now before we go in, because we're going to talk about this upper arm and the electrical coil that's in its next. So that's where I started working this week, and that's what this is. So this is the electrical coil or the armature that is right here in this level of the diorama. And what this does, and we're going to hook up power today to look at it, but what this does is this creates a little energy field in there, and I'm not the guy to explain that, properly. But it creates an energy field in here. And the closer that this little wireless LED that's inside that article that I put it in there, the closer that gets to the center of that coil, the brighter it gets. It gets the most of its energy right in the middle. I can go a little bit higher. I can go a little bit lower. So a little bit, lower energy here. So it's not quite as bright. So it dims and brightens as it goes through, which is really fun. But what I needed to do is I needed to get that coil that's underneath there. I needed to get it into something that's completely medieval, right? And I think that's one of the issues that I held off doing this so long, because I wasn't sure how I was going to hide the wires. In other dioramas that I've done, World War II or something like that, hiding wires, not all that hard, frankly. I mean, you can punch it into a wall, but even just where it's coming out of the item, you can do it. But here I had a moving arm. You know, this arm is got to have to move and maintain that electrical connection. So and it originates here. So it was a little bit of a quandary, you know, which way I could go with this thing. But let's take a look right here and see how I did it. So I first, this is loose end here. I did not want to glue it down. So these little tiny 3 brackets you see are kind of pieces of wood that have a notch out of the bottom. So it's glued on either side. So it's a little rattle a little bit, but I didn't want to like super glue it or hot glue it in there. If I have to replace this coil, and we'll know today, because again, I haven't lit this thing up yet. I can do it. It wouldn't be easy, but it'd be a heck of a lot easier than if I had hot glued it in there. So just think about that when you're doing your stuff. I do try to think about when I'm adding anything electrical, would I be able to replace this? And there's a certain pain point that I try to stay under, you know, if I'm, you know, breaking stuff, which I've done. I'm not interested in that, but I do want to try to make that experience doable. You know, I don't want to have something fail and then I can't go back in there and repair it. So we can with this. The next thing is this little PCB board. So that is a little control board that goes with it. I mounted it underneath there. That has a spot of super glue on it. And again, this is the underside that we're looking at. And it's all exposed at this point. I do cover the PCB, but not much, because I think this is the top again. I think what's important is it should have airflow. You know, electronic components get hot. They do. I don't know how hot that gets, but if it gets 70 degrees, that's not uncommon. 80. I've seen PCBs get 80 degrees. I've seen them get hotter. I'm going to have an environment that's going to possibly draw dust. There's flammable elements. I don't want to do anything that's going to allow it to gather heat. I've seen people use hot glue over small PCB boards like this. I don't know if I would do that. Maybe to adhere it to something, sure, but to cover it, you're putting something on it that's going to make it retain heat. And that's the worst thing you can do for a piece of electronics. You don't want it to try to retain heat. So I built a little cover over it. It's just a little piece of wood. I put 2 pieces of wood on the side. I put a top on it like that. You know, it's a little tiny. But that does allow airflow. That does allow heat to dissipate from that little PCB. It may be overkill. I'm not going to want to take a chance. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's go back to the pictures and I'll show you what I did next. The next thing was hiding the wire, and I did that. You see where it's coming along the top of that one beam. Well, I needed to hide that, so I just took a couple of thin pieces and put there like this, and that allows me to slip those 2 wires in there. It's on the back side of the arm. Excuse me. And that, you know, really is going to hide it pretty good, but again, leave me access. So that's what it looks like initially. I put it on there. Everything moves properly. I did a little bit of weathering, a little bit of wire wheel. You know, I haven't talked about that too much. I use a wire wheel when I'm trying to mess up my wood, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then I needed a counterweight. So if we go back to this picture right here, if you look at the end, not the big loop, but the upper left corner here, that's all it is. It's just sitting on basically a post. It's a hole just drilled through there, and it's sitting on top of a post. I didn't know how I was going to end it. I didn't know what I was going to do back there. I knew I had to deal with these wires. I knew I had a lot of stuff that needed attention. So I tried to keep it just as simple as I possibly could. So I came in here and I made this little basket, because what would happen when it was moving is the armature, the end of the arm, was too heavy. you know, that big hoop out there was just too darn heavy. So when this arm would go in there, even when I added rocks, it wasn't heavy enough to quite hold it in position. But the thing I like about this is it looks period. You know, I'm trying to get everything in here to look like, and I mentioned this a few times already in past live streams. I want to look like people built this. That it's like farmers, you know. It's like it's like really simple tools. It's like they're putting this together. Maybe they have some knowledge or they don't, but it's not like full on professional. It's like people just trying to get it together. I have a feeling, pardon me, that back then people were a little bit more knowledgeable in all of the things that you had to do because you just lived around it and so close to it every day. You know, it wasn't manufactured somewhere else and then brought in. It was manufactured on site. So as a child, you grow up, you see these things happening. So you have some idea as to how to build things. Well, that's the kind of skill level I'm trying to bring to this, where I could build this perfectly beautiful whatever. It would not fit the story or the element that I'm trying to tell. So that's why it looks so rough. In this instance, it wasn't big enough, so I had to go back to the little drawing board. I cut that stuff off. I built this bigger armature. Again, it's just slapped together on there. I then put these posts in there, and I made these little posts in a very specific way. There's the old one, there's the new one. So I almost double the size, or did probably triple the size. And the way I made these was I drilled holes down in the bottom part of this. And then I took the sticks, tried to make them very rough, you know, just a little strip. I cut it and I whittled down the end. And you can see it in the picture. Now, why that's so important is that is also another transferred skill from that time. I've talked about it before. I've got this book of and it's primarily in you know, pictures from the UK and kind of reenactments and things like that of how things were built, how they made a rake, how they made a fence, how, you know, all by hand, draw knives and things of that nature. And so what you're seeing here with that little peg going in that hole, that is a very, very, very ancient, just like the dovetail example I gave you before. It's an ancient way of joining a stick into a piece of wood. And I try to adhere to that. So if you really get tight in there, it completely holds up to the era, the time period, I guess, that I'm trying to simulate. I don't want to go too far into this, but I think that's important because I never want somebody to look at the stuff that I'm building and go, well, that just doesn't fit. They would have never done that. But I think it does. You know, so here it is now. It's big. I've got those the rope going around. I did 2 courses, and I just think it looks much more appropriate. It looks like, well, factually, it does support it properly. It does not come off of there at all when it's moving through its whole range of movement. This is the picture I was talking about before. Let me go back. But anyway, by having that there, that larger basket, it's holding those rocks. Those rocks are loose. There's another part to this that I'll show you, but those rocks right there are loose. And that was another element that I considered, well, when they get here, should they have to load the basket? You know, kind of a Tomb Raider type of a thing, you know, where you have to solve the puzzle and to make the mechanism work. That was an early idea. It's a part when you enter there, and then you have books with clues, and you have to look at the drawings and examples and put it back together, kind of like Uncharted. That was another idea that I just don't think I'm going to do, but it was an idea. So, and frankly, it could still work. That idea where you come in here and this mechanism is completely apart, that could still work. So I'm just going off on a tangent here, but I have to show you this. So in here, I've got little hold downs, right? So this, you know, goes back and forth like so, but I can take these off. They're only pressed in. So if I take that off like that, that comes out. Same thing back here. This comes off. and this whole thing removes. Once that's gone, this thing can come up and this whole thing removes. Now that's been attached. This has been attached. This will get attached. This, thing, but this lifting part, that can all come out with these slide pins. So, it's possible to take the gameplay and stuff in that direction. I don't know. I tried to keep my options open, and I thought that would be kind of fun. But then the practicality of it is, if somebody's just doing it on their own, yeah, it's probably fun. But if you're sitting there at a table and you're, hold on while I put this thing together, it may not be fun at all. So we'll see. But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting part that I would show you. Okay, let's go back to our pictures. After that, I just wanted to show you this picture because that's what I was talking about before. You see, I've got a little cover over that PCB. This is the underside of that armature, covering that PCB. But again, it allows air. And I did not cover those ends. They're going to be open. What I did do, and what you see here that I'm trying to demonstrate, is that I started wrapping everything with rope. That's the other thing. Back then, rope would have been a very viable thing to use to wrap and bind and make things hold together. So I wanted to introduce rope. Plus, I love the look of hanging ropes and stuff like that. I just think aesthetically, there's something very cool to that. So I'm adding rope. In here, where I bound up here, it does go over the wire, but because the wire is accessible, it's fine. Just a close shot of it. There, I wanted some kind of a wrap, that it not ceremonial, but it's like it has to be done in a certain way. That'll get weathering and aging and stuff like that. And then I came back and brought sand in. So we're done talking about the hoop. I hope everybody gets that. Holy cow, Wister is here. Hello, just a moment. We got to say hi to Wister. I got to get over here. Hello, Wister. This is an amazing feature for maintenance of the mechanism. Cool stuff, Bill. Thanks, Wister. I really, really appreciate it. Wister is also a person that comes on quite often and gives great ideas, comments, and stuff like that. So here, I wanted to bring in and set kind of like I guess the height, like the high water mark itself. I didn't want it going in and kind of on everything. I didn't want the whole chamber to flood, specifically because I wanted to show the graduation of the water up the posts. When you look at if you go to the ocean side or something like that, and you see the pilings for the piers and stuff like that coming out of the water, there's like a progression of color. There's a progression of, right below the waterline, there's mollusks and barnacles, stuff like that. Then there's a few here and they kind of group up, right there. So it's a little bit bigger. And then the post, there's like some greenish, and then it goes to black, and then it goes to white. I'm assuming that's salt. Well, I wanted to do the same thing here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to show that down here, the barnacles are all down there, and they're heavier there because there's more water down there. But as we move up these posts, I'm trying to do that slow graduation, and I was just very appealed by trying to bring in that kind of a detail. I just love the idea that you can see the salt working its way up these posts. I'm gonna go heavier on the salt. I'm gonna go heavier with these little plants and things like that. And certainly there's going to be more barnacles, but I wanted a definitive, top of the tide line. One of those things that I think helps show that, if I got the picture, I passed the picture, darn it, is this rope right in the middle. If you can see it, there's a rope hanging down. I don't think it's the greatest picture, but there's a rope hanging down from the middle of the contraption, and the barnacles are working their way up the rope. And I just love that. I just thought that was just one of those cool things. I added more rope, and so I've got to put barnacles on this rope, as well as mussels and things like that. So there's going to be a lot more here. I also probably want to do like a couple little crabs or something like that. So there'll be plant life and stuff like that. But you can see there's a specific tied line. It's not going to go further up into the structure. It's going to stop right there with that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this little lifting element, and the lifting element is what raises the article, the artifact, whatever that has the LED up into the coil, and that's super important because of that range. Remember, we talked about that a little bit earlier. If you're not in the center of that coil, if that coil just passes over it, with the movement I've got, I could get them to light up, but they wouldn't get to their maximum brightness because they have to be right in the center of that coil. So they got to come up through it. So I'm going to put this thing back together and we'll watch. I hope you watch. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I have to put this back first. I probably have some more weathering to do on this, but I don't think I'm going to break it up more. I had the idea that I might break this and then repair it, like for real break it, but I don't know if I will now. So that goes in here because we're going to try to light this thing up this time too. And that sits right there. Now this is a little funky. And what I mean is there are places on this. So it has to be kind of adjusted because there's places on here. It doesn't want to move as smoothly. And these are also super specific. They're not going to, that's not that one. That's this one. They're not universal. So that was the other, I think, issue about leaving it where it could be taken down. Because they're not switchable, they have to go in specific places. I thought that would be a little bit too much for asking someone to do. I could color code them, put a symbol on them, just like in the video games, but I decided not to. So there it works. Okay. And so we're talking about this now. So you see, it has to rise up. And so that's what we're talking about in my build videos here. I wanted something that would take this upper part, this dish or whatever it is. And by the way, that was from the scrap heap. I just went over to, I went over to my scrap heap and there was like a lid that I had turned for something else years ago. I don't know when. And that was just cool. I was like, wow, that's awesome. I can use that. So I used that. I put this, attached this to the bottom of it and then made two arms. The reason I wanted two arms is there's like it's called something where if there's two arms, it keeps it level. So it goes up and down and does this, stays level all the time. So I just thought that would be cool. So when it's down, it can just come up and we'll hold it pretty steady. The other idea was to have a platform kind of like I've got in the back for the other things. Put this big stone altar style platform that you put your things on and then just bring it over. But again, the issue that it wouldn't come up high enough to fully light these things was the overwhelming reason that I went with the design. So there's the design. Pretty simple as long as you give your wood enough support. I had to add some things to it. When it came to mounting it, because of the uneven surface here, the idea was, I'm going to go to the top-down shot here. The idea was, maybe build a base like this, this squared off base or like these over here where it's got this real engineered base. But then because of the uneven terrain here, I thought maybe they just scrabbled this thing together. Maybe this is a newer element, and this looks different. It's painted different. Maybe that's new and it had to be replaced. And I liked that idea. That's part of the other stuff that I'm trying to do here is showing age, showing that it's been maybe broken, repaired. people were in this site well before the mechanism. And there's an altar. There's actually an altar back here. So there's like an early altar for peoples that came to this mystic pit. By the way, I don't know what the heck I'm thinking. That's gonna be lit. You know, in the final iteration of this thing, the pit itself will be lit, and that's going to be part of, you know, bringing this mystical energy, light, whatever, to light these objects that have no wires to them. So that's supposed to be part of the magic. So I have not. I've said I'm going to be doing it, but I have not lit this thing up. So let me try to figure out where we are, and I'm going to light this thing up for you so you can see it. So I put it in there, glued it directly in. Again, the rope binding. I love the idea of the, you know, they're using what they had. Overnight, it's set up, and there we go. That's where we are. So let's take a look now and see if I can actually get this thing to light up. And this is going to be super embarrassing if it doesn't work, because I swear to you, I have not lit this thing up. So I'm just getting my power supply going back here. These wires will eventually go from here all the way and then through the wall. But for now, I just need to get some power to this. I got 8.5 volts at 1/4 amp, and there is power. And this actually has to be upright, and I just saw it light up. So there you go. It works. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to turn off some lights. Can you see it? It's lit up all the way down there and all the way through. So the range is doing quite well. Maybe I've got my voltage up too high. If I take my voltage down, because I know other ones of these don't light up until they get higher. So we'll see. Here is one of these LEDs just by themselves. Well, heck, they're all lighting up. It is stronger there. Darn it, they're so close, they're lighting up. I was hoping that there would be some form, because I know some of them, the range is not that far. See, as I get further away, it gets dimmer and stuff, but it's actually a lot better than I thought. That does present some interesting things, because I really did want, you know, I mean, the range, what I saw previously was maybe a 3/4 of an inch. That is about 1.25 inches. Well, I'm glad it works. That's good. But I think I need to look at how I present in the storyline, you know, how you get stuff there and how it does, because I was hoping that it wouldn't light in the lowest position and not light until it gets up, but it's lit. So now there are 5 different colors. I don't know why this is, but different colors, and somebody that knows LEDs is going to know this. Different colors take different voltages, and some have a longer or shorter range. White, I think, has the longest range. I think blue has the lowest range, because and I think it also takes the highest voltage. This has a singular voltage, so they do react differently, the different ones. So I think it's certainly going to depend on how I build the artifacts that the rest of the lights are going to go in. I've got 10 lights in total, 2 of each of the 5 colors. And so I do think that I'll have artifacts built where it's got more than one light, possibly different colors of light in the same artifact. But we'll see. I mean, that's the fun of it. I don't know. I know one artifact I want to build is a helmet, you know, like a medieval helmet. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because it's got to be pretty tiny. But I think that would be fun. And I don't want to print anything. I do, and I had these questions earlier this week. Am I going to have skeletons in it? You betcha. I will have skeletons in it. And I'm even thinking about, and I only have 1/35 skeletons because I printed those. But I'm thinking about getting the printer out, the 3D printer out, and printing some more skeletons and then scaling them up. So I have like a giant skeleton in there. Comparative, you know. I think that would be fun. So yeah, that I will have skeletons in there, but I don't really want to 3D print like the other artifacts that I'm built. I really enjoy scale scratch building. I'm not down on people that use 3D printing. I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's not easy. If you're making, your own, STL files, and you're doing that, I worked 23 years in the CAD CAM business, so CAD, I know CAD quite well. I'm not that great at it. I was in sales, but I know CAD. So if you're making your own files, it's flipping hard. Trust me. So it's not an issue of what I'm doing is harder by hand. It's just a completely different skill set, and I enjoy physically building things. It's a challenge, just like it is a challenge to design an amazing 3D object in CAD. It's remarkably challenging, and it takes a long time, and you got to figure stuff out. It's like the software doesn't do it for you. It does some things, but you still got to physically know what you're doing. So yeah, I like 3D printing, but the thrill and the joy that I get out of building something mechanical or something in miniature by hand, like my little trebuchet, for me, I mean, that's what I've done all my woodworking career. You see that thing behind me? That's a Da Vinci styled catapult. There's a bunch of them in my shop, but yeah, I like building it that way. So I will get that out and do some skeletons, but the artifacts I'm going to build by hand. And other than a helmet, the other thing I think would be great is shields. When I'm playing a video game, Baldur's Gate, hello. When I'm playing a video game, that is one of the things you find this really wicked, cool looking shield, and then that's your shield for, and it's got these powers and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what I'm going to do is I want to build like a nice, cool looking shield and put, wireless LED in it. And you gather it as you're playing the campaign. And then when you get down here, you throw it in there and boom, da, da, da. There you go. So that's kind of what's coming up next. Okay, so let's go back and see. I have no idea where we are in like slides and presenting anything here. So let's go see what's going on over there. So yeah, I love this. Now, I want to talk about the color real quick. The color of this is the same solution that I use when I'm ebonizing. So there's it's over there. I'm not going to go over there. All it is vinegar, household vinegar, and you soak 4/0 steel wool. So it's the 40, pound sign 4 zeros, 4/0 steel wool. And you soak that in the vinegar overnight, I think is fine. And then you have to strain it because that vinegar really attacks that iron. It's acidic. And it will attack that iron and break that iron down. So when you strain that out, and then the liquid that's left over, that is called ebonizing solution. And in woodworking, it's been around, I don't know, as long as there's been vinegar, And what it does is it reacts with the tannins in the woods. So it's not a dye. It's not a paint. It is actually a chemical reaction with the tannins that are in the wood. So some woods will react differently than other woods because of the amount of tannins that are in the wood. This is sapele, and it's got a heck of a lot of tannins in it. And you can tell, look how dark it is. It's beautiful. That's one coat. That is simply brushing a little bit of this on there, and it turns before your eyes. It's amazing. Now, in that picture, you look at the bottom, there's some that's a different color. Well, what that is glue. So when I was putting this in, I glued it down. There was a couple of pictures of that, and some of the glue got up on there. Well, glue will soak into the wood and almost seal it and inhibit the ebonizing solution, the vinegar, from reacting with the tannins below it. So you have to be careful about that, because it does work with it. But I built a piano bench a number of years ago, and it was out of cherry. And, piano benches, the classic piano bench is black. It's all like this really shiny black and stuff like that. Well, I built that out of cherry and I use this ebonizing solution on it. And oh my gosh, it went jet black. It took like 6 coats and about 3 days, to get it there, but it was just jet black and just came out gorgeous. And I didn't use a stain. I used the vinegar. So it was pretty awesome. I loved it. So that's just one of those techniques you can use. And it's also a technique that railroaders have used since they've been building scale model railroads. So not a new technique, but if you haven't used it, it's great for doing wood. It also works on balsa. It worked, like I say, it'll work on really all woods because all woods have some level of tannin in them, but the higher tannin woods, it really goes to town. So let's look at this a little more. So the top of the little thing here, you see it's kind of busted up. Well, and worn looking. I really wanted that, and I do that by going to my wire wheel, and my wire wheel allows me to do that. I did that on all these pieces here, and because this was just really nice wood when I started. The advantage of using real wood. Balsa wood's real wood, basswood's real wood. It's just that the properties of the wood are so light that you would just chew it up. And this is a big wire wheel. It's like the wire wheel on a grinder, on my benchtop grinder. So there's a lot of power there. And if you don't know what you're doing, you go in there like, I'm just gonna, and it just gobble the thing up and it just destroy it. So you got to be really careful. And it works wonders though, because it can really, draw out and dig out some of the stuff between the grain and look like there's been a heck of a lot of weather there. So I love it. I've been using it for years and it's just a great way to do it. Bobbity, I got to look at some really cool comments. Maintenance of the, yep, very cool. And then Wister says you can probably work that into the story or just change things if you need to. At least it works and looks good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Wister. Move the ring. LOL. I want to see the entire mechanism movement. I gotcha. I'm sorry. I was worried about those 2 electrical contacts coming together, John. I can hold it and we'll give it a shot. How's that? So let's get it moving. I'm going to swap over because that's a good point, John. Bobbity, let me go. Nope. See, if I'd know what I was doing, I'd be dangerous. Okay, let's reboot that. I'm sorry. This is black screen. This is great stuff, isn't it? Why is that so dark? I got to turn this on because I turned it off. There we go. Okay, John, I am going to do it. I got to get this guy set upwards. That's the other thing. They do, being vertical helps them light. If they're on their side, they don't light. And that's something that I can work into it too, Wister. Okay, so here is the mechanical movement. I don't want those guys to touch because it'll arc and be badness. Well, okay. See, I almost did it. Okay, so watch as it comes. I'm going to turn the slide off so you can see as it lights up as it comes closer. There you go. Yeah, so that's, John, it does do the lighting up as you get close to it. And of course, everything's loose now because I have to, but I do like that. And you know what I'm going to turn this off so I don't blow my power supply here or my coil. But what I'm going to do is, just wire this thing back. I was thinking of doing it before we started. I got all my electrical out before the live stream today. But I'll probably wire it up this afternoon after the live stream and get wires in there and get them tucked back, get it so you can't see them and stuff like that. Get them through the wall so we can get that final movement. That final movement's a big deal. It needs to be smooth. I don't want it all herky jerky. I don't want stuff to come apart. So I'll get that stuff mounted in. I've got to get the base for the pivot mounted in, and that's going to be part of it. So what else do I got? Let me see. I've got some nice comments. I got to get back to that. And then John said, how it interacts with the lights. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Aaron Reese, hello. I don't know you, Aaron, but thank you very much for coming in. I wonder if you could use beaded chain to do edge weathering like they do with chains around large lumber. Oh, yeah. You know how where they carve it, you mean? Where they do that beading on lumber. Is that what you're talking about, Aaron? I'm not sure. I want to use beaded chain to do the edge weathering. Change around large lumber. Oh, I see. Like when they're moving it, so how the chain will dig into it. I like that idea. If I'm understanding what you're saying, Aaron, I do like that idea a lot because weathering without just understanding what the weathering is just like, I've seen stuff weathered, primarily furniture, and you can see somebody just hit it with a hammer a bunch of times. Literally, like they do faux weathered furniture, and it looks like somebody just took a hammer and you can tell they hammered it. That's not weathering to me. That's faux weathering. I really do try to make it look like it was actually worn by something, or you know what I mean? That is a really good point. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. There's that Indian electrician that went viral for. Oh yeah, I saw that. Oof, boy, that was terrible. And I don't want to do that. Apologies, I wasn't thinking about how precarious it would be right now. Thanks for showing the movement. No problem, John. You know how this thing works, and you know how it works. So, you're like the in crowd. We'll put it that way. So no worries there at all. Yeah, but I think that getting that wiring done is going to help a lot. The other thing, and Wister's asked this a few times, lighting, and John made comment too. Lighting, what's lighting going to look like in here? Well, I want to put lighting back here. Let's get these out of here. I do want some lighting in here because when it's under and covered up, literally there's going to be something right here. So there's no big, vaulted ceiling or nothing like that. It ends right there. These go right to the ceiling. So there's got to be light in here. This is the only available light that's going to be here, coming from the outside. So when it's underneath, now you do unstack this diorama to play it. So that's a fair point, but I still think it needs some light. So on the front of these 4 posts, I'm going to have torches. And those torches, I want to light, like they look like a torch that's just been stuck in there. Like they got there was no light. They had to bring their own torches and put them in some sconces or some holders and some torchiers or whatever the heck they're called. So yeah, I want to build those and put those on the posts and have lights in there. The other thing that Wister was mentioning before was, what about a fire? Like where they built a fire, I love that idea. And there may be a place to do that because again, this whole thing is to look like people enter in there. And it's like it's a mystical place. It's like an ancient temple. It's like maybe nobody's been in there for 1,000 years or maybe 500. I don't know. But anyway, nobody's been in there for a long, long time. So they don't exactly know, but through reading or through discovery and stuff, they locate this. They've been searching for it for years. This is trying to build some of the story for it. And then they finally get there. I love the idea that they go in there and like, oh, we don't know what to do. So they build a fire to light the place up. And then they go put, torches, stuff like that. So that's a really cool idea, Wister. And I think something that is definitely going to happen is just how I go about it. I was going to talk to John about that. John, I want to talk to you about, when you did your light fixture, could you see, now I'm just putting him on the spot. I'm not asking you to do this. I'm just saying, could it be done? Could you do like little, like a flame that, like the clear stuff? I don't know. I'm asking, but I promise I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Because I think that would be kind of cool, is just have like a little clear flame that I could put a light in and then make it flicker to try to do it. Now I did this previously in a barrel, a flame barrel, one of my videos, and it came out fantastic. And what I did was I used a piece of 1/4-inch acrylic And then, I use my Dremel and I carve the acrylic to kind of look like flames, coming off a fire. And I polished it all up so it was clear and stuff. And then I put lights underneath it, and then I put smoke around it. It really came out cool, but it was also inside a little barrel, 1/35th scale barrel. So it was obscured, so you couldn't really see it. These would be right up front. So that's why I'm thinking me doing them out of acrylic might not look good. So all that stuff that I said previously about wanting to do my own stuff and not going to 3D, here I'm like pandering and asking if that can be done. So you see that I'm duplicitous. Let me see. And John says, yes, you can. See, that's what I was hoping for, because I think that wouldn't be a bad way to do it. Because I think the lightness that you were able to do, John, in your light fixture, that's something I don't think that I could create, as well as the fact that it kind of diffuses, the clear acrylic I did, I guess I could like sandblast it or something like that, or rough up the external surface to get it to diffuse. But the lights that you designed and printed, which John is an amazing artist, if nobody knows, if you haven't seen his stuff, and he just posted one of his things. His treehouse was really, really cool. He just did post that on Instagram, I believe. But the point I'm trying to get is he did this really nice design of a street light in Disneyland, and he did the bulb that the lights are in the, I don't know what you call it, the glass thing on top, and it's gorgeous. But it was, I don't know if it was naturally, John, or you did it like a texture to the outside when it printed, so it did diffuse. But I thought it diffused beautifully, and we talked about different diffusions, but I just thought that material worked great. So anyway, I'm just jabbering. Maybe a standing floor brazier. I like that idea too. Remember, like in the old movies, well, heck, in some recent ones, I think the last one I saw was The Rock in the Scorpion King, his second movie or third movie, something like that. That had the standing braziers, which are really, really cool. I love that. Cast iron grated ones that you put logs on. I love that idea. That would be kind of cool. It's not the physical thing, really, the torch, the holder, the brazier itself. It's the fire. Making fire is so hard. That's what I was asking John about. That's what gives me hesitation to make a really nice looking fire is what I like to do. I almost want to do like, a little tiny fan, where you see where they do these things and there's something blowing. I could see that, but how? I mean, I've got little teeny tiny motors, electrical motors, like 3-volt motors. I mean, they're literally this. They're about as big around as a pencil, tiny. I could put a fan underneath something and not using like ribbon, like you see them do in stage shows or something like that, but some of this felt, some of this white felt. That would be kind of cool because it does look like smoke. And if there's light, the light would reflect on. Anyway, see, this is the fun stuff, folks. I like it. You're giving me ideas, Aaron. Yeah, a brazier made sense to me too. I mentioned that before as well. Exactly. That's what I meant. Okay. So when you said brazier, Wister, earlier this week or even last week, I was thinking torch. But I do like brazier. Exactly. Because it's that bowl kind of thing. And they're just like the stands, like the metal cast iron stands that go up, that again, easy to make. It's all about the flame. But I do love the idea of a brazier. That's really, really cool. You can either do a voltage flicker or one type of LED or get closer fluctuation in RGB. I'm thinking, remember, I have that code, John, on a previous so the one that I'm saying I put in the barrel, that's the code I was thinking of using. My Uncle Joe, not my Uncle Joe, my gosh, my cousin Joe is a genius. And so he wrote some code for me that does the flickering. And I just have that code. So I would just use that code from Cousin Joe, which would be just great. It's an excellent idea, useful too, because you can bury the LED inside a cylinder of lumber. Yeah, and I love that. I love that, you know. So Relic, hello from Arizona. Hello, Relic. Nice to meet you. Thanks very much for coming in. Was looking forward to your live stream. I forgot to hit the notification and missed the beginning. Oh, that's okay. And I'm sorry you're late, but I do replay of it. So, I mean, it'll like replay right away. But what I do is I will, right as soon as it's done, I will set it up to post as a video. So it's like in the regular feed at 4 p.m. West Coast time, Pacific time. So the whole thing will replay and everything, the whole thing. But if you go to the live tab, heck, right after it's done, I think it's playing. So thank you very much for coming in, Relic. And folks, if you're new to the channel, one of the things that I love to do is show other people's builds, their websites, their channels. If it's just you're thinking about an idea, I love to show that. I love viewer content. So if you're interested in do that, please contact me. I don't know if I have something at the end of this to show you that in my slides, but on my Patreon channel, you can join for free, and there you can contact me and send me pictures and I can show your stuff on the live stream. And I love doing it. It's really, really fun. Gladiator, that's awesome, Reese. Because or Aaron, I remember that in Gladiator, they had it too. So yeah, I love it. And then Aaron says it's usually done with a flicker LED of the light pass through a gray airbrush cotton swab. Yeah, and I like that. But I like the flicker LED because I use the flicker LED on Wolfenstein, one of my prior dioramas. It was more of a video game kind of a diorama, and I had this monster coming out of a doorway, and that I used the flicker. And I think I used 3, and it just wasn't as stark of a flickering. It didn't work as well. But later on, when Cousin Joe got involved with an Arduino, then and John and I do Arduino talk as well. That's not a show, but that's a good idea. Anyway, I use the Arduino, and I really like the Arduino because it really gives you a great flicker, meaning that it starts and stops instead of this kind of the flicker bulbs. They just kind of, I don't know. It's not as sharp, I guess, is the best way to put it. Whereas the flicker that you can do with Arduino totally is. So I just prefer that. But yeah, both of them work. Shane is here. Hello, Shane. Sorry to pop in so late. That's okay. I was just explaining to somebody, you can watch it later and stuff like that. And I love it when you watch it later. And I love your comments. Shane has been really active too in commenting and stuff this last few weeks. And so I really appreciate it, Shane. That's really cool. And thank you for making it. Aaron says, sorry if I missed something. I'm jumping back and forth between redoing my shop and the chat. No worries at all. No worries at all. And I love the fact that you said you're redoing your shop. I would love to see your shop. I am a huge shop fanatic, and it doesn't have to be a shop. It could be your creative space. I think it's fun to share that kind of stuff. I kind of build my creative spaces because I imagine they're dioramas. My shop is a big diorama. It doesn't have to be all like that, or it can be. It doesn't matter. But it's fun to see where people create. So if you want to show me pictures of that, anybody, Aaron, everybody, send them in. Love to show that. I think it would be fun to have a show dedicated to your workspaces, people's workspaces, not just mine. I've shown mine all the time. But what are you doing in your workspace? That would be really, really fun. Shane says, if you could, I'd love to see you have the model done more. If you could, I'd love to see if you have the model done more. Oh, I think just maybe the top down will help with that. I will do that if I understand. Yeah, there you go. So there's where we are, Shane. I didn't do too much from yesterday. From my updates from this week. So I haven't done too much more, but I've got that working. and that is working. And I did have the electrical set to that earlier, and it is lighting up. But the funny thing is, it's not kind of, there's more range than I thought there would be. As soon as it gets over the lights, they light up. Whereas I thought they wouldn't light up until I raised them, but that's okay. I have to look at the other lights, see how they respond, see how they light up, their range and stuff, because the different lights do have different ranges. And that, I think, will give me a little bit more ideas for how this particular thing works in the storyline. Because I do kind of want it to be, the big boss fight, is the end, the ultimate of the whole thing. You come here, you work your way from the top in the diorama and come to this, and that's it. But again, it doesn't have to be. You could literally start there and work your way up in the diorama, because I do want it to be able to be played. I do want a campaign written for it, whether I do it or even somebody else wants to offer one, where you can go in and actually play through the diorama. I just love that idea. So and Shane, if there's more, I am gonna post images, just stills and stuff like that, on my Facebook later on today. I do a lot of stuff after the show. There's like reposts and blah, all kinds of stuff that I got to do. So I will put a lot more stills that I've shown, but also more than that on Facebook. And I did do, this is kind of fun. I did do a backstage video for all of my patrons. All my patrons. And so I've got a preview of that. As a matter of fact, that's a pretty good segue, huh? So this is what, from time to time, I started this is only like number 7. But I've started doing a longer format, just handheld, me just explaining what's going on, what I'm doing. And it's a real close up. It's a real slowed down, casual way. And it's called a backstage. And so here is one of my backstages. Basically where we are with the base. Back this up. Oh, yeah. I think it's about time we did a backstage. And I wanted to show you basically where we are with the base of the D&D Diorama. So here is what I did last night, and it's this little lift. And it's all about the coil. So up here, the coil comes over here and goes back and forth. And there's an electrical coil underneath it. Shown that before. But I always needed something to get it high up. I needed something to get it where that energy's at, because frankly, the center of the coil is really where it's best adapted. So I needed something that I could kind of come up inside. And so that's when I came up with this. And you can even vary it, because as you get right to the center, which that would be the center for that little LED, that's going to be the brightest. It starts dimming as you go above and dimming as you're coming up on it. So I wanted something where you could kind of do that. And so I'm pretty happy with it. The other thing is, you'll notice there's no rocks in there. I did finally break down, and I just had to use some hardware. I felt like once I started working on the electrical, I needed a way to make sure this thing was not going to come off, not going to yank a wire, out of the wall or something like that, because that's what's going to happen. I'm going to have the wiring going to the wall. And I wanted this thing to be stable. So that is on there. So this thing is attached now, can't come off. But I also did this. I made this little rock insert that goes in there and covers it. You can still kind of see it. I'll paint it black. But that goes in there, and then I put the loose rocks on top of it. Now, I thought of gluing them, but when I did this, I used super glue, and while it worked, it also melted the saran wrap that I was using. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of give you a little preview. That, I think that's about a 12-minute video. and that's real indicative of what they look like. It's an update. It's an informal, and it's on my Patreon site. So if you have my Patreon, you can go there and see it. It's for the paid members only, but I have like 3 different levels: $1, $3, and $10. And for the $10, that's what I was talking about, John. Earlier, each Friday we have scheduled a group build, and so with the group builds on Friday night, it's 2 hours, and it's us together. We're actually both on the screen. We can talk back and forth, and I really enjoy it. Once per month, I open that up, and right now we're doing on Sundays. Sorry, my ears. On Sunday, we'll do once per month on the 3rd weekend of the month. That's all paid patrons, and that's open to everybody. And that's really fun. That's 3 hours. And I'm going to do that. That's a flexible time because I'm trying to find the right time for people. So all my patrons, they'll get probably another reminder this week about, because next week is our 3rd week, about when and what time to set the group build for everybody. And that's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it because it's questions, it's talking. As I've said before, there's probably not a lot of building that goes on, but there's a lot of talk about building that goes on. And so it's a lot of fun. And it's the interactive part is the great part. I really like that. I like typing comments, but I type like I'm trying to kill something. I never learned to type. So this is like really hard is when I type. And so it takes me a lot. I got fat fingers, and so it's all over. So I'm like the delete button is almost worn out because I have to correct everything. But I enjoy it. I really honestly enjoy talking to people every day through text, through messages, through comments and stuff like that. As I said earlier in the video, I get so much joy when I get a neat idea from somebody, which I had from Scott this week. And was it Mary? I think it's Mary Nickel was her name. I'm seeing her a little bit more often, but I haven't got that brain embedded. Like Daniel's Go For It Painting was here today. I'm just learning your name, Daniel. So thanks very much for being patient with me. But yeah, it's that community feel, and you folks getting involved in this, which I never imagined. I've talked about that a little bit before, but I never imagined that when I started doing this, that I would get input. And frankly, I didn't know that I would take input. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. Not so much the dioramas. The dioramas are newer, about 7 or so years. But I've been building things in my shop and in my garage for 30 plus years. And it's always been this very super personal thing. I mean, like people that I worked with didn't know about it. They just didn't. Because it was very, very super personal. This is my sanctum. This is the place that I go to. This is that place where creativity is a very personal thing. So for years, I did this and I didn't tell anybody about it. So when I started, putting stuff online and things like that, and I'd get some comments and things, and it was really neat. And maybe early on, I got some comments said, you should, folks like, well, you should. And it's like, well, okay, but then I got used to it and I go, wow, wait a minute. You thinking like, oh, I'm this or whatever. And no, nobody can tell me what to do because it's my shop. This is my creativity, right? But it didn't take long when I started getting these ideas that were so fun and out of my experience. That's why I didn't maybe think of it. Or maybe it was my experience, but I hadn't thought of it yet. But I opened myself up to other people contributing and other people's ideas influencing. And holy cow. I mean, when you think about it, everything that you create is influenced by everything you do anyway. But it's that direct comment, those direct influences, people invested in it and they're going, man, I love this. What about that? It just blows me away. I love it now. And yeah, I didn't know that I would initially. I didn't know that that was something that I guess was capable of doing. I thought this is my stuff. I got to do it. But now to have people commenting, and I love the comments and I love the ideas. And as I showed earlier today, it brought me so much joy to be able to take this in a direction that I had not considered at all. Still within the framework of the story. So that's also brilliant. So that the ideas that came from those people, they're thinking similarly to what I'm thinking about this, and their idea just made something happen. I love that. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't, because I don't know what it would look like without this now. It wouldn't be this cool. I can tell you that. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. So keep the ideas coming. I do not shy away from that anymore. It doesn't mean the idea is going to make it in, but it also doesn't mean that it won't be in another diorama. I've got stuff from John Hayes. He was in last week. He's not here this week, but there's stuff in my dioramas from John Hayes. There's stuff in my dioramas from Mark Doramus. He was in earlier today. Maybe he's still here today or now. There's ideas from folks in my dioramas from, I've never met him personally. I know Mark and I have met people personally, but it's just a neat thing. And I love it. You know, they talk about this whole thing, building a community, and it's, you know, an old guy like me, it's hogwash, you know. It's not. It totally feels like a community. These are people that I know and people that I see every day, and it's really fun. And thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, I think we're done. Gee, Merry Christmas. I would hope so. I am going to look over here and see if there's anything else of pertinence or importance. Oh, this is a great shot. I got to show you this. That's not it. That's it. So that's what I was trying to see a little bit earlier. It's just a little bit more of the stuff that I put down there, and a lot more coming. So I'm really excited about it. My patrons, my wonderful patron folks, are right there in the middle. Thank you all so much. You are contributors and you're part of this thing with me. I also have YouTube members, and boy, I gotta tell you, Bushranger and John is both a patron and a YouTube member. I really appreciate that, and I gotta tell you, thanks for hanging in there, because I have not done too much except for they get stuff before anybody else, my YouTube members. And so they see everything first, but sometimes it's like 2 minutes first. But I do have more content coming for you. So thank you very much for that. Because I mean, they're making a financial, decision here, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th is a wonderful day. It's not a bad day. Your day is going to go better from this point on, I promise you. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you later. And there should be a new video up, I think, tomorrow. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to do something this afternoon. Have a great day. We'll see ya.